Are you thinking about buying a fixer-upper or renovating a property in Philadelphia? Before you start swinging a hammer or settling on a property, there are definitely a few things that you should know because renovating here is not necessarily like what you're going to see on HGTV. So today, I'm going to break everything down that you need to know before renovating a home in Philadelphia, from your permits to finding the right contractors and also hidden costs that can derail your project. My name is Mark Gabriel. I'm a real estate agent and investor here in Philadelphia. I have personally gone through the renovation process myself. I renovated a two-story single family townhome in South Philadelphia, gut renovated it, and I kind of know everything, the good and the bad that comes from that. So if you are planning to renovate in Philly, whether you're looking to flip the house or whether you're looking to buy it and then move into it, here are some of the things that you need to know before you get started. So number one, you're going to want to understand the permitting process. And the reason this matters is because I've seen people purchase fixer-uppers or homes that are in disrepair, and they just get contractors in there and start doing things, and that is an easy way to get your project shut down by L&I and then also run into delays. So the first thing to understand is there are permits that need to be pulled depending on what you're doing to the property. It could be a very simple permit if you're just doing very limited work, like just electrical work or plumbing, or if you're not really like moving staircases or interior walls. But it also could be a larger permit for like a full renovation if you are doing things like replacing staircases and possibly messing around with structural elements. So before you purchase a home and settle on it to renovate it, you just want to be clear on what permits are you going to need. Is it a cosmetic renovation? Is it a full gut renovation? And just know that you are going to have to go through the proper process to get those permits in hand. Every different permit does need different things in order to get approved. So if you're going for, a permit where you're changing around structural elements, you may need actual plans that get created for that renovation, versus if you're just doing like an easy permit and doing mostly cosmetic renovations, you may not need that. So again, speaking with an agent or a real estate attorney or just an experienced contractor to know what permits you're going to need for the level of renovation that you're doing is really important before you buy a home. So the second thing that you definitely want to look at, and this goes hand in hand with the permits, is also the zoning of the property that you're buying. I cannot tell you how many times I have seen people buy properties and just think that they're going to turn it into a duplex or a triplex, or, add an addition on it, and they don't know whether or not they're allowed to do that by right with zoning. So don't just assume you can do whatever you want with the home that you're buying. First, make sure that you understand the zoning of the home that you're buying and what can actually be done as per the code in that zoning classification. You just don't want to get into a situation where you're having to go and get a variance for what you want to do, because the variance process can be expensive, it can be time consuming, and it's not a guarantee that you're going to get approved for that variance. So if you're going to go down that road of getting a variance, you want to know well in advance that you're going to have to do that. And that's a calculated risk that you're going to be taking, but you don't want to have to go down that route without knowing that you have to go down that route. So knowing the zoning up front and understanding what these homes are zoned to do, how much of the lot square footage can be built, how high can you build, right? Like if you're already maxed out at 38 feet, you can't just add another story above that if you're in RSA 5 zoning. Little things like that, just to understand what you could do as per the code, are very, very important. If you don't know that, you're going to probably run into issues. But if you're working with like a good architect or a good real estate agent, they should be able to point you in the right direction. Or if you're just doing like an interior renovation and you're not really like building out or doing anything crazy, like trying to add units to the building that aren't already there, you probably are in okay shape. But again, you just want to confirm those things before you go and, go ahead and buy that property, and then you're stuck and you can't do what you want to do. So the third thing to be aware of is really the budget for the renovation and also how you're going to finance it. So construction costs here for like an interior renovation can vary. I would say like for a full gut renovation right now, and if you're hiring a general contractor to handle all that, like you should probably take into account at least $100 to $110 a square foot. So like if you're renovating a 1,200 square foot property, like that's probably going to cost $120,000 if you're hiring a reputable contractor to handle that. And it's also going to depend on the types of finishes that you're putting into the home. I can tell you firsthand, budgets can quickly get out of control, especially if you're building a house for yourself and you start splurging on, nicer cabinets and nicer countertops and nicer tiles. All of a sudden that budget that, you had at $120,000 or $150,000 can go up to 175 or 200. So you do have to make sure you're going into the renovation with a very clear understanding of what the scope of the renovation is and what level of finishes are you putting into the property. Going a little bit deeper into the scope of the project. Now, on renovations, sometimes you don't know what you don't know until you get in there and start opening up walls and seeing what's wrong with a property. So piggybacking off of that, it's important to also have a contingency fund, because if you do run into something unexpected, like you have to replace the sewer line and that's going to cost you an extra 5 or 10 grand, or you have to replace the roof when you weren't expecting to have to do that, those are things that you want to at least have budgeted into the project as a just in case fund. So if you're working with a GC, if you're coming up with a budget, make sure that they are, first of all, in line with the finish level that you want, because I have seen GCs bid a project and they go in and say that they can do it for, a really cheap price, but then they're only giving you the option to put in really cheap materials. And if you want nicer materials, then they're going to start upcharging you and it's going to cost you a lot more than you initially expected. So getting clear on that, and then also making sure that you have an understanding of like what a contingency fund might be, and what the worst case scenario might be if they find extra things, would be something I would definitely suggest. And then on top of the budget, just figure out upfront how you're financing it. If you're flush with cash and you're going to do it all cash, that's great, but most people aren't. So before you settle on the property, you should probably figure out how you're going to get the money for the construction. If you're building the property for yourself, there are a lot of different loan programs that are available out there. I personally used a conventional renovation loan, which was a great experience for me. There's also the FHA 203K loans, which are, again, they finance the purchase of the property as well as the construction. So those are loan programs that you can look at if you're building it for yourself. If you're an investor, you're probably going to have to finance it with either cash or a conventional like construction loan, or you could go and do hard money and work with a hard money lender who's going to finance the project if you're looking to flip it. So those are a couple different things to look into depending on what you're trying to do with the property. And so number 4 does tie into the budget and a little bit what I was talking about with the contractor, but you definitely need to make sure that you're working with a reputable contractor. I would suggest having the contractor ideally walk the property with you before you purchase the property. Like even if you have it under contract and maybe there's like a small inspection contingency, like a 5-day or 10-day contingency, just try and get your contractor in there before you actually settle on the property. Because first of all, you're going to want to talk to a couple different contractors if you don't have someone in place, and you want to really vet them, like look them up, make sure they're licensed, make sure that they have experience doing renovations in the area that you're doing, or at least in Philadelphia, and going through the whole permitting process. Make sure that they have insurance and all those kinds of things, because like if you get in with the wrong contractor, I have seen nightmares. I have seen people have money stolen from them. I have seen people, you know, get projects like just abandoned halfway through by contractors. So you do really have to make sure you're vetting the contractor. And then if you have a really good contractor, they're going to help you avoid a lot of the pitfalls that I talked about in the last section with your budget and really understanding what needs to be done with the property, because they're able to walk the property with a different eye. You know, me, myself, even as a real estate agent, I've seen a ton of properties, but like if I walk a property with a contractor, they just immediately can catch different things that I'm not going to catch. They also have a really good understanding of how much it's going to cost to resolve certain things in the house that need to be resolved. Whereas you might not know that. You might look at something and say, hey, I could probably, you know, get new electric done in this house for X amount. And the contractor will tell you it's actually going to be less expensive or more expensive based on X, Y, and Z. So they really have a good understanding of, you know, Philadelphia row homes, if they are a reputable contractor, and what it's going to cost to address certain things. So I think getting the right contractor is super important in this process. And the last thing that I'm going to tell you in terms of renovating a property in Philly is you need to expect delays. And this is just something that I, again, have learned from experience, have learned from working with a lot of different investors in the city. There are a million different ways and reasons why a project can get delayed. Sometimes it's really, it's not anyone's fault, but there are supply chain issues with getting materials. You know, there are inspectors from L&I who are either, you know, not passing you on the first inspection, or maybe their schedule is running crazy, so they can't get to the project on time to review things. Permits take a while to get turned around. Contractors get tied up, subcontractors get tied up. There are a lot of different things that can delay a project, and it might not be just one thing that's delaying the project. It might just be death by a million cuts. And if you have, you know, 5 or 6 different 1-week delays, you know, or 2-week delays, now that could be months that your project is being delayed from what you expected. So the reason I say this is because some people will go get financing for a certain amount of time, expecting that the project is going to be finished within a certain amount of time. And then if they run over that time, they are having to pay extra interest or fees to the bank because of those delays. Also, if you are currently in a lease, right, and you're trying to line up a renovation and be able to move into the property by a certain time, you definitely just want to give yourself a grace period and know that if you're expecting it to take 6 months, you should probably assume it's going to take 9. If you're expecting it to take 9 months, you should probably expect that it's actually going to take a year. Just be very cautious on that, because I have seen it personally. I've seen it with a lot of people that I work with. There's almost always some sort of delay that's going to pop up when you're doing a renovation in Philadelphia. So renovating a property in Philly can be an awesome opportunity. I mean, personally, I'll say it is very rewarding to live in a house that you designed and built, and, you know, understand all the thought that went into it. So I think, you know, if you are planning a project in Philadelphia, definitely don't be scared that there are some pitfalls that you're going to have to avoid, but definitely just get the right team around you who is going to help you to navigate the process very smoothly. So if you are looking to renovate your own property in Philly or buy a property to flip, definitely feel free to reach out to me. I have a ton of experience in this type of work in Philadelphia, and I do have a lot of good contacts that I can put you in touch with who will lead you in the right direction. If you like this video, hit the like and subscribe button, and definitely follow along for more Philly content. I'll see you next time.